What is my labor force? Anybody? No? What's the difference in population and labor force? Is everybody a part of my labor force?
Only the people that are willing and able to work are in the labor force.
Correct. The labor force in an economy is defined as the total number of workers who are available for work. Is Dhruva completely disconnected? Total number of workers who are available to work. Okay, so we're saying the entirety of the population isn't part of the labor force. Can you tell me who isn't part of the labor force? Or let's say, what is the size of the labor force influenced by? First of all, how many ever people are in my economy, right? India has a bigger population, so India is going to have a bigger labor force, sure.
Can 1 point for the size of the labor force?
Yes.
And probably education as well.
Oh, you said a point earlier. I'm sorry, I missed that. What did you say?
And education.
Can anybody understand what you said?
Should I just type it?
I can hear everything you're saying other than the one word you said.
Education and income. Two different.
Income. Okay. Why income? Think more of the people who are like at the age, kind of. Dhruvi, can you tell me what influences the size of my labor force?
The number of people in the working age, maybe.
Yeah, so that's similar to saying population, right?
Retirement age and all that will be different.
Correct. Population age, we can say, sure. Retirement age. Once people retire, they're no longer going to be part of my labor force. What else?
Unemployment benefits.
Yeah, so that becomes similar to Gehenna's point in terms of benefits and income. That determines if people actually want to work. Directly related to retirement age, which is when people exit the labor force. What about when do people enter the labor force?
It's Shloka, I have a question. Is education considered in the factors?
So that's what I'm saying. It's not education in itself, but the age that people leave education at, right?
Yeah.
School leaving age, we call that.
Yeah.
And lastly, the attitude towards working women. Most women in India don't work. So the size is influenced by population, retirement age, benefits and income, school leaving age, attitude towards working women. So basically all of this determines my labor force participation rate. Meaning how many people are trying to actively participate in my labor force? How many people from my population? How many people from the correct age group are trying to be part of my labor force? Which country will have a higher labor force participation? A developed country or a developing country? Any ideas?
What was the question?
Which country will have a better labor force participation rate? A developed country or a developing country? A developing country usually will have a higher labor force participation rate, okay?
Shouldn't it be developed if we are comparing the percentage?
No, you're thinking in terms of employment. We're only talking about the number of people willing to work.
No, but it's like the participation rate, so it's like the proportion of people, right? So in developed, the um, population will also be low, but like the number of people working will be.
Why?
high.
Do you think people work more in America or in India? In India, don't
According to
leave school earlier.
population, I'm saying.
But it's a proportion. It doesn't matter. Number of population doesn't matter, no? You're seeing relative to the own country's population, who is participating more, right? Relative to the country's own population, who is participating more. More Indians are participating because Indians leave school earlier, right? And Indians retire later. Whereas in America, people will leave school later and retire earlier because incomes are higher. Make sense? Unemployment benefits are also better. In UK, US, people can afford not to work. In India, everybody has to work. Yeah? Only the working women point is in the other direction. So in developed countries, people leave school later, retire earlier, and can live on benefits. This is why. Labor productivity. I feel like this was the one definition, if you actually asked me. When I did 9th and 10th, it was the one definition that I remembered. Because it's a nice, sweet, short definition. Does anybody remember? What is labor productivity? Just try to explain it.
Can I try?
Yeah.
Labor productivity, probably what we were taught in grade 10 was, I think it's called the economic performance. It basically shows the, it compares the amount of goods and services which are produced with the number of hours that were used to produce those goods and services, if that makes sense.
Perfect. So, can we say it is the output produced? Productivity meaning we're measuring output, but we're seeing how well that output was made, right? How well each hour was utilized. Correct. Output per worker, first of all, per hour. Okay. We're seeing my productivity, so per worker, and you're seeing how much work I got done per hour. When we talk about productivity in the context of us also, how productive were you today? Means how well did you study today? How much work did you get done? Right? You consider a time period, you consider one individual, and you consider what output they produced, what they ended up doing. Yeah. So that's labor productivity. Sorry?
Can you give the formula for labor force participation?
No, there's nothing. No formula, no calculation. I mean, labor productivity, in fact, could have output. But labor force participation has nothing. Even for this, you won't get any calculation. That's something you would have gotten in like 9th and 10th. What is unemployment? The state of being willing and able to work, but not having a job. We can't call unemployment just not having a job, right? Because that means you could simply not be part of the labor force as well. We have to see that it's someone part of the labor force. So the state of being willing and able to work, but without a job. So how do we calculate unemployment rate? So it's the number of people who are unemployed. And what will it be upon?
People that are willing and able to work.
And what do we call that?
I'm not sure.
Sorry?
I don't know. I'm not sure.
We just learned, what do we call people who are willing and able to work? Labor force, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So number of unemployed upon labor force, and it's a rate. So into 100. Simple. So first, let's do the causes of unemployment. I believe this is something we're all already familiar with again from IGCSE. Frictional. Rishi, can you tell me what frictional unemployment is?
Was it when workers get unemployed between changing jobs?
Perfect. So it's a temporary form of unemployment, right? Where workers are just in between jobs. For example, you've just left uni and you're looking for a job. So there's some different types within this. One is called search unemployment, clearly, where you're just searching for a job. Yeah, we can say someone's looking for a better offer. One is casual unemployment. So people whose job description involves being unemployed for some periods of time, like not working for some periods of time. Can we think of anything like that? Is everyone working 24/7? Okay. What about actors? Right? They work for a movie and then they wait and they work for another movie. Yeah. Construction workers, they work on a project and they wait till they get the next project and they work on the next project, right? So as part of the job description, there is some form of unemployment. And then there is seasonal. We all know seasonal, right? Where it's based on the time of the year. For example, farmers, tourism, but there's a particular time of the year where you have to do the work. So casual is similar, but it's not based on the time of the year. So we don't call it seasonal. Make sense?
Are like maternity leaves and all also part of frictional unemployment?
No, you're still being paid on a maternity leave, so you're not unemployed. The whole idea is that they're allowing you to keep your job. Next is structural. And when we studied the Kuznets curve, we learned what the word structural means in economics. Dhruvi, do you remember?
When demand falls.
That's cyclical, business cycle demand, right?
No, like when the demand of a particular industry falls, right?
Correct, because you know what structural unemployment is. But structural in economics is usually when the structure of economic activity changes. Remember, we said primary to secondary to tertiary, right? So the structure of the economy is changing. As people move from secondary to tertiary sectors, abroad, a lot of manufacturing jobs have reduced, causing structural unemployment. So this basically creates a mismatch between workers' skills and the jobs available. Okay, also just as a little tip for MCQs, whenever they talk about unemployment and they mention information, okay, it'll always have to do with frictional unemployment. Because if you had better information, you would know about vacancies, right? You would know which person is hiring. And so you'd be able to find a job easily and there wouldn't be frictional unemployment. So anything related to information always has to do with frictional unemployment. Okay, so there's a mismatch between the skills and jobs available. So can we say it's a result of occupational and geographical immobility? Patterns of demand have changed as countries have developed, but skills have not kept up with them. Within this also, we have a couple of forms. First, we have technological, when workers in a particular industry start being replaced by capital. Then we have regional. In a lot of industries, in a lot of like regions, they're known for one particular industry. And so when that industry starts declining, that area will experience a lot of unemployment. Okay. And the last one is international unemployment. When people stop, basically structural is when demand for your product, for one particular product changed, right? If we haven't made that clear enough, let's make that clear enough. Demand for one industry is falling. So international unemployment is basically when demand for that one industry has fallen as a result of demand switching to an international competitor, right? Like I stopped buying Indian tea because we all started buying foreign produced tea. And that caused structural unemployment in the Indian tea industry. Is this clear? Can we finally come to cyclical unemployment? Basically, these two, frictional and structural, were on the supply side of things. Cyclical unemployment is from a result of a lack of aggregate demand. Therefore, it's also called demand deficient unemployment. So now can we apply this to the new classical graph we've learned? So we come back to our previous subtopic, which is full employment and natural rate of unemployment. This is simple. Y represents full employment level, right? At the potential output of the economy. It also represents a monetarist concept, actually one created by Friedman, called the natural rate of unemployment, also referred to as NAIRU. Yeah, the natural rate of unemployment. Okay, so basically, the natural rate of unemployment and full employment both include frictional and structural unemployment. Basically, they're saying that this is not a problem. So the natural rate of unemployment will typically be something like 3%. Okay. So this is supposed to include frictional, and structural is usually there when the country is developing, right? So a country with a developing economy will tend to have a higher national rate of unemployment. Why will it be there more when a country is developing? Because when a country is developing, it goes through these stages, right, of industrialization, from primary to secondary to the tertiary sector. So it'll be there a lot more in that scenario.
Can you repeat once?
Yeah. So the natural rate of unemployment is roughly something like 3%. Okay. And that is supposed to be basically frictional and structural unemployment. We're basically saying that this is not a problem. Casual unemployment, seasonal unemployment is not a problem. Let it happen, right? So frictional we understand. And structural also they're saying is kind of inevitable. As a country develops, like we said for the Kuznets curve, inequality also is inevitable that way. So it's okay that this is happening. So developing country is going through more structural change. It's the one that's going through the process of industrialization and deindustrialization. So it'll tend to have a higher natural rate of unemployment. But in both scenarios, it'll be viewed by the new classical school of thought as not a problem. Nobody views these as any concern. It's okay. Country will develop. It'll go away. People will find jobs. It'll go away. Yes. Full employment is defined as the level of employment corresponding to where all those who wish to work have found jobs, excluding frictional unemployment. National rate of unemployment has been defined as the rate of unemployment that exists when the aggregate demand for labor equals the aggregate supply of labor at current wage rate and price levels. The definitions are in your book, but this is what we need to understand from it. So they're saying that all of this is caused for supply side reasons, right? So basically, according to them, unemployment cannot be reduced in the long term through fiscal or monetary policies. So if you're not using fiscal or monetary, what do we need? Supply side. What could be some of my supply side policies used here? So more people, aggregate demand increases, but also when we cut income taxes, people are more incentivized to work. Because they get to keep more of their own money. Or you go the opposite way and be not so nice and reduce benefits, thus forcing people to work. All of these are your various supply side policies. Yes. Improving education and training, we're all familiar with. Reducing trade union power, in fact, makes your labor market a lot more flexible. When we've studied trade unions, we can see that Friedman was very, very against trade unions. We discussed this when we spoke about labor market, right? That some new classical economists were very against trade unions. Why? Because they restrict your free market. They don't allow your market to move freely, and that leads to unemployment. So we call those labor market rigidities, okay? Where people can't really move around anymore because producers can't hire whoever they want, fire whoever they want because of government regulation, because of trade union power. And I mean, it's up to us, right? Like I view that as a good thing. Imagine if they could hire whoever they want, fire whoever they want. That's going to cause a lot of job insecurity. That's going to cause a lot of higher levels of unemployment, in fact. It might be more quote unquote efficient, but it won't be equitable. Okay, so we'll just do one graph and we'll stop here. I don't think I've personally ever been this excited for a Diwali break. Like whenever I went to school, Diwali break was like, okay, cool. But now I'm so happy. And also taking extra classes for the whole second week. So I'm just happy for that 1 week. Ayan, I hope you're here.
Yeah, I'm here.
Okay. So any unemployment that exists at this full employment level, right, that exists at potential GDP, what do we call that? We call that a natural rate of unemployment, right? So can we say all unemployment over here equals structural plus frictional unemployment?
Is it national or natural?
Natural. Natural. Did I say national?
No, you wrote natural only, but I heard national once, so then I'm
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Did I say national? National. Structural plus frictional. They're saying that this is but natural. This is going to happen. Even at our most productive level in an economy, this is natural and is going to continue to happen. So at this level, we have structural and frictional unemployment. Even though we call this full employment includes these two. Now, in any area after this, we would have had a positive inflationary gap, a positive output gap. Yeah. Over here, there's still zero cyclical unemployment. And some people who were frictionally or structurally unemployed have found temporary employment. Otherwise, how will your employment level increase? Right? How will your employment level increase if people were at full employment? So some people who were frictionally or structurally unemployed have found temporary employment. And now can we see which unemployment would have been caused in this area? Over here, we have a negative output gap, right? What has happened in this area? When do we reach this area of employment? When my aggregate demand falls, right? We reach this section of output when my aggregate demand falls. So what do we call unemployment caused by a fall in aggregate demand? Over here, I have cyclical unemployment. Plus whatever frictional and structural. The one essentially output gap, right? That's the one going highest unemployment, while GDP is lowest, is going to be the highest levels of unemployment.